It's only your face.
That's
Good.
all right. It's only my face. Yeah, go on then. You can show me. Then people know that it's actually me.
Let's have a look. First we'll start with the reading. So
Yeah.
this is what happens. Do you want to come round so you can see the screen?
Yeah, look at my data.
So this was the second one. We'll regard the first as a trial. This is what happened.
Okay. Tried really hard.
Okay, so let's look at that again, but a bit slower. You're working very hard.
I couldn't even process what some of those words said.
Yeah.
I was just looking at them. So
Yeah.
I couldn't have told you what it meant at all.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you can see your eyes are pretty random.
I was just talking about that word, then that word that I was trying.
Yeah. I don't think you're actually reading much of it.
No.
But I want to do that again. This time I want to do it separating your left eye, yellow, and your right eye.
Okay.
And quite a few times they're actually, it doesn't matter if they're close, but sometimes they're going off and that's your right eye there going off and doing its own thing. Your right eye is going off there and doing its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the coordination between your two eyes is not as great as it could be. It's not terrible, but it's not good. And that means your brain is seeing two separate images and it's got to bring those images together to merge them before you can start reading.
Yeah.
So when you've got lack of perfect convergence, reading is going to involve a lot more processing. And I think that's what's happening in these busy areas here where you're messing about. It's the waiting for the processing to take place. Does that make sense?
Yeah. They're better than I thought they'd be.
Really?
Yeah. I thought they'd be doing completely different things. But they're fairly close.
So, response time is good. Quite a few overshoots. This is horizontal saccades.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have had, and you may well still have, a tendency to jump words.
Yeah.
That's because you've got no lateral control, so it'll actually go on beyond where it should. And sometimes you don't notice. You're bright, so you'll actually guess and get it right.
Yeah.
So you've got a high level of overshoots, hardly any undershoots, which is fine, but you have got a lot of preempts. I'll explain what that means. These first three are kind of neurological, but the preempt is kind of psychological, because that's saying you're impatient, you're not going to wait, you're going to do it your way, you're not going to wait to be told. So there's a bit of maverick.
It's like you've known me all my life, Wynford.
There's a bit of maverick, determined person there. You might be very chilled and feminine on the surface, but there's a gritty determination there. You're not going to wait for somebody to hold you back. Does that kind of relate to you?
Absolutely.
So let's have a look at the vertical ones now. No slow responses, which is amazing. A few overshoots, not quite as many as with the horizontal. So vertically, you will occasionally jump lines.
Okay.
And particularly when you were at school, you may well have used a ruler or something to stop you doing that.
I didn't think of it at school, I wish I had. But yeah, it does help me now.
Yeah. So do you do it now?
Sometimes.
Do you use a ruler? Yeah.
Sometimes. It
So you can
depends
see
what the
that
text is like. But your book is actually really laid out really quite nicely. When I read that, I didn't need it. But if it's thick text,
Yeah.
you know, because you've got nice headings and stuff, but I do need to keep track of it somehow.
So quite a few overshoots vertically, a few undershoots, nothing to worry about there. It's better to undershoot and then go than to overshoot and then have to come back. And again, a lot of preempts. You are definitely a determined character. Woe betide anybody that gets in your way, it tries to slow you down. So this next one is the centre gaze.
Yeah.
This is where it stays still. And your eyes should have been following the green line.
Oh wow.
These long ones here, ignore those, they are blinks. It
Okay.
doesn't matter about those. But the distance from the line tells me that you are working very hard to stay focused.
Yeah.
Can you stay focused? Yes. Is it easy? No. You're actually working hard.
Yeah.
And you're working hard right from the beginning all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
So not terrible, but that shows that if you don't have maintained focus on something, it's actually not a choice. You're not being lazy or irresponsible or careless.
Yeah.
It's hard for you to stay there, you're exhausted. So concentrating on something for 10 minutes will be the same in terms of work effort to somebody else concentrating for 4 hours.
Yeah, probably. It's definitely a challenge.
So let's look at the last one. Don't tell me what sport you play or don't play. Let's have a look at this. Ooh, wow. Wow, that's actually good. Yeah. So you've got the ability to track a fast moving ball. You overshoot a little bit here, which we've seen elsewhere. You're overshooting, but you'd actually be okay at tennis if you practice at it, because you've got the eye coordination, the eye tracking to do that. Took you a few seconds to get started for some reason. You're a bit jiggly there, but as you went on, I've seen elite athletes with worse eye tracking on what we call smooth pursuit. So that starts off slow, and this is the quick end where it finished. But you were actually pretty good. Wow.
I can't believe that. I don't play any sports that involve balls.
No, but you could. Well, as far as your eye tracking is concerned, maybe your hand-to-eye coordination, which is something different.
Right.
But in terms of moving your eye to take in the data, that bit of the process is actually working very well.
Okay.
So there you are.
Some good stuff about me. Woohoo!
Did that make sense?
Yeah, you did. Thank you. So is that the
assessment
finished?
That is the assessment finished. I can show you the report, which we can send to you.
Yeah, that'd be lovely.
This is a reading report, and this shows your overall score 70%. So you're pretty good. You're ahead of the game. Your reading speed was not quick, and I think that's because there's a lot of processing going on.
Yeah.
Your coordination wasn't brilliant, as we saw that. There were times when one eye was doing something totally different, giving the brain a lot of work to do. Your response time was very good. That's usually linked to intelligence. Not always exactly, but it gives you a clue.
Is that the one that we just talked about with the ball or not?
No, that was eye tracking. But it's all linked. This is to do with the speed of processing.
Was that when I was reading the words, or?
It takes it from all over the place.
Oh, even the dots.
It's measuring your response time to every movement, every instruction.
Okay.
But that was exceptionally good. Exceptionally good. So you're probably quite bright.
Who knows?
Accuracy, not brilliant, which we saw. Control, not brilliant, which we saw. Your ability to concentrate is there. So if you're determined to focus on something, you're going to be determined.
I definitely like focus, yeah.
And then this is your smooth pursuit, which was well above average. We have a remarkable score actually, without distraction.
And that was the ball one that you talked about?
Yeah, so if you were an ice hockey player or a tennis player or a table tennis player, you would, if you had the right coaching and right practice and you've got the right hand-to-eye coordination, you would actually be very good. So there's no limitations with eyes. I found it even with Formula One drivers.
Oh, yeah.
You can have limitations with their eyes where there's a delay. So they can be brilliant drivers. We make them even better. You don't need that. We wouldn't change your eye smoothness ability in the context of sport.
Wow.
We wouldn't need to.
So could you explain these? Is 50% average?
Yes, this means, yes, this is normed, so this takes into account the whole population. So in this, you're not up to halfway. In all of these others, you're actually ahead of average. But this just highlights where you've got potential to make reading a lot easier.
So, as you know, I've bought Hallowell. What's the
Hallowell Brain Health?
Hallowell Brain Health, yes. So I'll be starting that in the next day or so. After I've finished
Are you going to come back and do this again?
that's what I was going to ask you. Yeah. Is that okay?
That'd be fun.
Amazing. And how long does the whole process take? Is it 6 to 12 months or?
No, you
How
you should get through it in 90 days.
Okay.
The program is a 90-day program, and most people, they start to plateau after 90 days. In other words, they've found their potential.
Okay.
A few people, for whatever reason, are still going at 90 days. They're still actually feeling better with each session.
Okay.
So we encourage people then, okay, continue it for a couple of months until you plateau, and then you've got all of the key circuits maxed in your brain.
So the data I will be inputting into the app on my phone,
Yeah.
that will be able to tell all of you guys at Zing
Yeah.
if I've reached my potential or not.
Yes.
Whether I should carry on.
Yeah. The data you put in every day is
Yeah.
useful. I mean, be very careful with that. Don't exaggerate.
Yeah.
Don't under-exaggerate. If it's hard to do, say it's hard to do. If it's impossible, say it's impossible. Often we get teenage kids exaggerating what they go, oh yeah, that was easy. But in actual fact, they were struggling. And of course, the program has to rely on that to optimize the type of sensory information, sensory stimulation you get the next day. So answer that as accurately as you can.
Yeah.
And it will optimize your progress.
So the initial assessment that I did
Yeah.
for the program,
You repeat that every 30 days.
okay, and that had questions like stand on one leg
Yeah.
with your eyes closed,
Yeah.
and input how many seconds you can stand on that leg
Correct.
with,
Yeah.
and right and left leg.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Is that the kind of data that I'll need to put into the app?
Yes.
Every day?
Well, that's very physical data that you check. But no, you don't need to do that every day. You only need to do that once a month.
Okay.
And the other tests you did looked like computer games, but they're actually very carefully developed to measure your auditory processing capacity,
Okay.
your visual processing capacity, your processing speed, your ability to focus and pay attention. So we're taking those neurological measures once a month. And then the whole idea is you can see your neurological progress doing that, and your subjective measures which you put in, how am I doing that, this, that and the other, those improve
So
as well.
how I feel about the program, how I
Yeah.
feel about if I'm...
How you feel about actual practical things, yes.
Okay. So the actual, what will I be doing every day with the app?
Every day,
Yeah.
the app will prescribe to you stimulatory activities that you do. They only take a total of about 8 minutes. There's 2 of them usually. And there'll be a combination of stimulating your vestibular, your balance organ, and some process that will challenge your cerebellum. Getting that right is important. If we try and develop too much stimulation, it can overstimulate you. It won't work. If we understimulate you, that won't work either. So we're always optimizing the type of stimulation we're giving that challenges the bit of the cerebellum we're working on that day.
Okay.
And then you give feedback about how easy or hard that was. That updates our records about how much you can cope with when we're working on that part of the cerebellum. And we work on several different parts. So we're trying to develop them all and bring them all along to optimize them.
Right, so I don't have to input anything into the app every day, I just need to do what it tells me to do.
All you've got to do is do what you're told for once. It doesn't come naturally to you.
It does not. And 3 months I'll just need to input that data.
Yeah.
And just make sure I put it in.
Yeah, every month you'll be told, do the assessment again.
Yeah.
And that which for us it checks you're on track, but importantly for you, it sees that you're making neurological progress, and your subjective feedback is making progress as well.
Fabulous.
Because often you forget, if you've got a son growing, you actually don't see that he's grown until one day you put some trousers on him, and the trousers have gone 4 inches up his leg. Oh, you've grown.
Yeah.
You're actually growing every day, and the same is true with neurological progress. You're actually making progress all the time. You're stimulating your brain like this. Unless you measure it, you may not notice it. I think you will.
Yeah, I think I will. So is this going to help me tidy up?
At the moment, some of your key skills are not fully developed. It often happens with people that are highly intelligent. When a key skill isn't developed, you need conscious compensation.
Yeah.
So if you think about when you were learning to ride a bike, you knew what to do, but you were falling off. because you're having to think about it. You can only ride a bike when the cerebellum has turned all of those thoughts about what you do and don't do into automatic unconscious processes that you don't have to think about. So until you've got rid of any processing in your thinking brain, you can't ride a bike. At the moment, because you've got a few key skills not completely developed, you're not a complete natural at them, your thinking brain is full of stuff that shouldn't be there. Now your thinking brain is not very good at those skills, it's working very hard, but the worst thing is it's filling this space up, and you need this space for other things. You can only get at best 7 things in here. So if this is full of processing, eye tracking or auditory processing or whatever it is, then there's no room to be organised.
I actually feel that. It's not just you saying it, that's how I feel.
Yeah, exactly. So if this is full of stuff that shouldn't be there, you can't be organised. You also have difficulty with decision making. So if there's not much room in here, you won't take in everything you need to take in for a complicated decision. So you will either be impulsive and act on the most important short-term thing, or you might even procrastinate, or you say, do you know what, I can't cope with that right now, so you avoid making a decision altogether, all because this precious working memory is full of stuff that shouldn't be there. So with any form of neurodiversity, whether it's dyslexia or ADHD, or dyspraxia even, or Asperger's sometimes, this is usually close to overload.
Is it the same with autism?
Same with autism. So another function of this here, the executive functions are all here, another function of this is to control your emotions. If this is full, you've run out of mental capacity to cope with what's happening, what the world is throwing at you. You also run out of capacity to control your emotions. So there will be time when you lose it, you'll cry or you'll get angry, uptight, because you've got no capacity here to deal with what life is throwing at you at that moment.
Makes me think of spoon theory. Are you familiar with spoon theory? I've recently learned about it. It's the way they talk about people with autism. Apparently, people with autism have so many spoons per day, and I think it's a way of measuring energy. So they choose what to spend their energy on in the day, and then they don't have enough energy left for the other things, so they have to think very carefully about what they do. I may have got that wrong, but spoon theory seems to link in very closely with what you're saying.
Yes, it sounds as if it could do with working memory capacity.
Yeah.
And the concept the world hasn't yet got is that we can increase our working memory capacity. There's 2 things that bring our capacity down. One is underdevelopment of the cerebellum, which is what the program works on. And the second thing is emotional triggers that have come from traumatic experiences, because when you are triggered, the brain creates cortisol, floods part of the brain, and literally takes it out of action.
You can't
that takes away mental capacity as well. And as you know, what we've put together are ways of dealing with the underdevelopment of the cerebellum, which frees up working memory capacity, and separately we use our version of EMDR, which presses the reset button on the triggers and gets rid of those triggers, neutralizes them, stops the creation of cortisol. So we've got 2 fundamentally really complementary ways of increasing available working memory capacity.
That's amazing. So if we can relate that to, say, all children all around the world being asked to read aloud in class, which is traumatizing if they're struggling with eye tracking, after doing Zing, could they go back into the classroom and not be traumatized by being asked to read out loud?
Well, a couple of points there. First of all, why is it traumatic for a child to read out loud in class? If a child has poor eye tracking, then that child is going to be working very hard reading. Very hard. The thinking brain is completely full. Letters are jumping around. They've got to unscramble it. That is horrific. Then they've then got to turn what they eventually work out is the words on the page into speech that comes out of its mouth. That's another neurological process which requires working memory capacity. They're going to go into total overload. They're going to have no working memory. They're likely to completely lose it. I had a friend, she would much rather get sent to the head teacher than be read out loud in class. So she used to, when it was coming down the line to her and she knew she was next 1 or 2, she would start making such a fuss, causing trouble, that she'd be sent out of the class. That's exactly what she wanted. So I believe it should be a criminal act to make children who struggle with reading to read out loud in class.
Totally agree.
And it doesn't help them. It doesn't help them at all. It traumatises them.
Yeah.
It causes them to have a traumatic response right through their lives when it comes to reading.
Exactly.
So it's exactly the worst thing that you could possibly do.
And I used to spend the whole time in the classroom panicking about, I knew I'd be asked this. Yeah. And I couldn't listen to what was going on because I was too busy stressing about being asked to read.
And some of your attitude, some of your unconscious attitude now to reading stems from that.
I know, I'm
where
very
you,
aware
where
of
you have a subconscious fear. So
I have to tell myself, relax, calm down, and then I can do it.
Well, when you're going through this process, we're going to repair or complete the development of the cerebellum, which will make your eye tracking much smoother. And next time you come back, you'll see that on the screen. Your eye tracking is smoother. Your brain isn't working as hard. Your thinking brain isn't full of controlling your eyes now. So you'll have space to read. The information will be going in unscrambled. The letters will be going in the right order because your eyes aren't going backwards and forwards. You won't see letters backwards so much, and so on and so on. All of that is fantastic. But secondly, you're going to be doing our version of the EMDR process. We'll be training you how to do that yourself. And if you specifically bring up those adverse experiences at school, you can get rid of the trauma.
If I talk about it in the EMDR?
Well, yes, you talk about it, or talk about a recent experience. You actually don't have to recall the event. And by the way, you don't have to tell any therapist. You just have to recall the experience in your own mind.
I see.
So you don't have to share with it. Some of the things that people try to deal with are hugely embarrassing to them, really seriously embarrassing and shameful. You don't have to share them, which is quite true. You do have to have it in your mind. You do have to be relaxed, and you do have to be doing the bilateral stimulation. Do all of those, and it unplugs the trauma. It neutralizes the trauma.
That's brilliant.
And it stops you having all of those feelings.
Because sometimes talking about the trauma, I find, is re-traumatizing.
Completely. Well, you don't have to talk about it. You do recall a recent experience where you were triggered by something. Recall the feelings. That's all you need to do. The brain does the rest. The EMDR does the rest. It finds the connections in the amygdala between the event and the trauma you're now getting, and it unplugs it from the alarm system.
So it links, your current trauma links to where it actually stems from originally.
It does. And if you can't, there's been loads of instances where people actually couldn't recall the trauma.
I've heard that.
And that is stunning. The first time it happened for us, but sometimes it's previous generation.
Wow. Yeah.
Sometimes it's before their memory was formed, and they were told about events that happened. Right. Sometimes it was something that happened during pregnancy or at childbirth. The cord around the neck was an instance we had recently.
Wow. And
the brain finds that and addresses it. So the whole process of bilateral stimulation, it replicates the very librarian process. And it goes off and says, oh yeah, we can find that trigger. It's like opening the cupboard doors of the amygdala and saying, here's these things that need to be addressed. It's an amazing process. And the fact that it happens is incredible. No one has explained how neurologically it's happened yet.
Yeah.
But the fact that it does happen consistently is thrilling.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for your time. This is amazing. Thank you.